Oh, you can put it. Whoa! Don't do that. That's terrible. Yeah. I was trying to set it to landscape stream, but I don't see the setting now that it started. So let's just do it this way. This allows me to see the chat anyway, if there is one. I think that ideas and concepts, especially when put into practical application or attempted or tested, are just as vulnerable to processes like natural selection as biological evolution is. Just like biological evolution, and ideas concepts will have numerous factors and dynamics to them that will allow for adaptations, and in some cases necessitate adaptations until less responsible concepts or dangerous ideas eventually become filtered out by a process very similar to biological evolution. I think that's what we're seeing with gun control. I'm hoping, because you guys have to understand, not only is gun control a stupid idea, like it doesn't follow logical, rational sense, and that can be proven, but it also is very dangerous. It isn't just the complete disregard for sensibility. It's that the agenda that the concept is pushing by itself is inherently dangerous, irresponsible, negligent, etc. And I hope that when all of this stuff, this cultural insanity and arguing and complaining and crying is over, that not only will concepts like gun control, and definitely including gun control, be considered dead, but that its top advocates, the people that were really coming over here to convince people to lay down their own protection, that those people, those advocates, can be criminally prosecuted. I know that sounds extreme, but if I were to go on national television and tell you that you should fucking... What up, TNT players? If I were to go on national television and tell you to drink chloroform, people would get hurt. And all I'm really doing is exercising freedom of speech. I mean, I could go, if I had the influence like Piers Morgan or whatever, with these guys, these commentators has, I could go on television and say, I'm not saying you should do this, but by the way, drinking chloroform is very good for you. And stupid people would do it, and that's a matter of like, how relevant is your actual influence? And so I think that we can triage the identification of the strongest advocates of dangerous ideas by filtering out or filtering through candidates by their influence. So someone who's very famous, someone who has a lot of, convincing power over the larger numbers of people, who advocates a dangerous idea like put down your own protection. And not only that, but to literally believe that it is not your, to subvert the concept of what guns are so that you're scared to use a life-saving tool. It's like being scared of fucking Narcan, dude. It's literally the same thing. What are you doing? Oh, we're talking about how gun control is insane. And not only insane, but dangerous, and there should be, if there are going to be criminal prosecutions in the United States, if they're going to happen, they should be happening to the top advocates of gun control. I know it sounds harsh, but it's getting people killed. And so too would my example of convincing liberals to drink chloroform, or, any demographic of people to drink chloroform. The idea is, let me break some things down for you. The first thing to understand is that a firearm is an inanimate tool. It is an object. A crowbar, a tire iron, all inanimate objects. A firearm, inanimate objects. Yes, the firearm is designed specifically to inflict great bodily harm, But you could say the same thing about a knife. Especially the types that are not used for cutting meat, but instead are used for personal protection. That's sole purpose is to inflict bodily harm for the purposes of hopefully protection. If left to its own devices, if set down on a table and just let to sit there, a firearm will never shoot somebody on its own. It simply won't. It's impossible. It's impossible. Because, what about when you drop it and it goes off? Well, if it has a free-floating firing pin and all the circumstances are correct and you're handling, the item irresponsibly. Dropping a hot firearm means that you have no business carrying a hot firearm, even without the floating firing pin, but they don't make those anymore anyway. Stand by. Do you sell like Dayquil medicine? Oh, you got it.
Dayquil?
Yeah.
Yes.
How much are the?
It's $1.
Oh yeah, I've got you. Okay. Okay, continuing on. You'll notice that let me give you an example, and let's just remove all agenda behind this claim. We're going to remove anything that's meant to prove a point or strip it of any context. How often are police stations and firing ranges subject to mass shootings? There's got to be a hard number. Okay. And I won't even use that data to try to make a subjective point. The matter is, look at that data. How often are police stations and shooting ranges subject to mass shootings? Why? Because if a dirtbag spree killer wants to go killing people, he goes for low-hanging fruit. The goal for a spree killer is to kill. It is not to get, cited by copped or, normally, or to be cut down or apprehended. The idea is to effectively transmit murder. You're not going to do that in a place where everybody around you is armed and wants to shoot you. You simply won't do it. It's a dumb idea and only goes to indicate that an armed environment is less subject to being preyed upon by spree killers, serial killers, etc. Okay. Is not the tool. Do you know how many people have been killed by crowbars, knives, baseball bats, firewood logs like earons, a fucking pipe wrench, a lawn plugger? How often blunt force homicide is committed? Or how about blade crime? All of these things. You don't ban pipe wrenches. You prosecute criminals when it happens, and you engage in preventative actions by influence of the culture. Preventative action of influence of the culture is not everyone put down any object you can use to defend yourself. That's recklessly irresponsible. The solution is for people to undergo a cultural shift in what is considered, acceptable behavior. Whether that's handling firearms responsibly, not selling drugs online like Netflix tells you to do. Like, I've done that. It didn't end well. But it required a cultural or an ideological shift for me to internally decide I don't want to sell drugs online anymore like Netflix told me to. Okay. As many of you know who watch this channel, I'm a former criminal. that, when I was younger, 20, 21 years old, I was running around with drugs and guns. I have never once in my life legally purchased a firearm. Never once. Okay? Now, it's been since 2017 that I possessed a firearm, but I certainly didn't buy that legally, and it was no trouble at all for me to acquire. I was 19, 20 years old. It required a very short period of intensive, passionate networking to arrive at a location in the criminal underworld where guns were available to me illicitly. It wasn't difficult to do. All that was required was the willingness to do it. Now, ultimately, you can't ban guns. And when I say can't, I don't mean you shouldn't. I mean you can't. This is the concept that is not understood. A prohibition of a desired commodity will result in a illicit manufacturing industry or enterprise for an illicit commodity. End of story. It will. The Afghanis are cutting down their ephedra and breaking their rocks apart for their phosphorus so they can cook meth over there. Because that's their goal. If a criminal wants to commit mass homicide, he will do it. But the idea is to put preventative ideologies, cultural concepts into play long before that gets to that point, rather than trying to ban guns, because if someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night, say Irans or similar, you can't call the police. It doesn't work. I mean, you can, but you'll probably be dead before they get there. That's the reality of the situation. So to convince people, and here's the real irony of it. You know why you call the police? Take a guess. Why do people call the police when they're in danger? Because the cops have guns. Simple. Why add the middleman? If you're not responsible enough to... dude, I was shooting firearms responsibly at 11 years old. Any idiot can use a firearm and not harm anyone accidentally. Cars are way more dangerous. Way more dangerous than a firearm. So hopefully we arrive at a place where eventually dangerous, irresponsible, subversive concepts like gun control, which is a subversive concept, are prosecutable offenses. People going on national television saying that guns kill people and you shouldn't be allowed to own them, that should be considered a criminal offense. Oh, my freedom of speech. It would be considered a criminal offense if I went on television and told people to drink chloroform. It would be. Like, what the fuck? You can use your freedom of speech, but what you can't do is nefariously advocate dangerous concepts upon unsuspecting victims with the hopes that they'll recreate those concepts and thus bring harm to themselves, such as drinking chloroform. That's illegal to go on TV and tell people to do that, or should be if it's not. Same with gun control. It's the same thing. So the nice thing about getting in a gun control debate argument is that you automatically know that your opponent has no ability to understand reasoning and logic and is not smart. So you might as well just avoid it. Spread information, teach people how to be responsible with weapon systems and things like that. But as far as arguing back and forth about whether or not we should be banning guns, you automatically know that anyone debating you on that matter is so stupid that they're not worth talking to. They don't have the ability to logically work through something. It's so easy. It's such black and white logic. So, okay. Live from a spinning ball. This has been the Most Banned Prowler Online.